Thank you so much for joining us today, both in person here in The Hague, but also our friends who are joining online. My name is Maria Elena Vignal, and I'm a Senior International Justice Counsel with Human Rights Watch. And we are extremely honored to host this event tonight with our colleagues from the Burmese organization, UK, and for Women's Peace and the Women's Peace Network, the Global Justice Center, and Refugee Women for Peace and Justice. Today marks truly a landmark moment, the start of the merit hearings in the case that Gambia brought against Myanmar before the International Court of Justice. Is truly a testament to the perseverance of countless activists and survivors who keep pushing for justice in different avenues and often against very steep odds. So before we start and before I give the floor to our distinguished panel and our Hannah Seita from the Women's Peace Network. First of all, I want to share our regrets because some of our panelists, two of our Rohingya partners tonight were not able to join us in person because they were not able to travel. Wei New and Lucky Kareem, but they did send us a pre-recorded messages, so you'll be able to hear from them. And then we are going to record this event tonight to be shared on social media afterwards to ensure, though, the privacy of all those attending. We're just going to be recording the panel. There's going to be a Q&A session at the end of the panel discussion. We're going to take questions from the Zoom participants and questions from the room. And after the event, please join us for some drinks, a snack, and some mingling at the back of the room. So again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I will now give the floor to Hannah.
Thank you, Maria Elena. Good evening, everyone. This is Hannah Seita, the Research and Advocacy Coordinator of Women's Peace Network, a Burmese human rights and women's rights organization with a dedicated focus on the Rohingya. I'm honored to serve as tonight's moderator following a momentous day, the first day of a 3-week-long merit hearings of the Gambia versus Myanmar at the International Court of Justice. We will now begin our panel discussion, after which we will have a question and answer session. I'm also very much honored to be joined by esteemed panelists, all of whom have contributed to the justice and accountability efforts that we will speak of today. First, we will have Lucky Kareem, the founder and executive director of Refugee Women for Peace and Justice. Ashita Alag, legal advisor of Global Justice Center. Utan Kin, president of the Burmese Rohingya Organization UK, or BRUC, and chairperson of the Arakan Rohingya National Council. And lastly, Shana Bachner, Myanmar researcher at Human Rights Watch. So to begin, we will have a recorded intervention from Lucky, who will reflect on the ongoing hearing.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lucky Kareem, the founder and executive director of Refugee Women for Peace and Justice from Myanmar. Sorry that I can't be in person, and thanks everyone in the room for joining us. At the age of 14, I was forced to flee my home in August 2017 from a genocidal act perpetrated by Myanmar's military and security forces against us Rohingya. And I lived for about 6 years in Bangladesh Cox's refugee camps until December of 2022 before getting restored to the United States. First of all, my community and I are so grateful to everyone involved in our case since November of 2019, when it was first filed at the International Court of Justice, and the countries that are intervening this week in The Hague. We must not forget that the genocide against Rohingya is not a past event. It is an ongoing process, despite previously ordered provisional measure against Myanmar by the court. Since the coup in February 2021, the junta continued to commit genocide, implement their discriminatory policy to target the Rohingya community, including killings, forced conscription, and sexual violence against Rohingya people in northern part of Rakhine State or broader Myanmar. As a result, tens of thousands of Rohingya people have been forced to seek refuge in our neighboring country, Bangladesh, since August 2023, which brings to a population of more than 1.3 million people languishing today in Cox's Bazar refugee camps. We have also witnessed so many terrible events in Myanmar, including the recently held so-called election, which has been widely rejected as JIM. It sent a warning sign to refugees in the camps, those in Myanmar, or the internally displaced people, IDPs. I remember watching the first hearing at the ICJ back in 2019 from my tiny shelter in the camps, like millions of other refugees. A day that felt like a rebirth to this world. We all were overwhelmed with so much hope and expectation of some improvement in those changes to the lives of Rohingya in Myanmar, though I knew the trial process may take longer. Myanmar's case before ICJ is a beacon of hope that our decades-long suffering may finally end. While there is need for justice and accountability, it is crucial to end impunity in Myanmar, prevent further atrocities, and ensure immediate protection for the remaining members of the Rohingya community in the country. Thank you.
The genocide, the current atrocities, is an ongoing process. It never ended in 2016 or 2017. With that in mind, it's very much clear to us, and based on, for those of you who also attended the hearings today, that the harms that were committed in this genocide are extensive. As we heard in the merit hearings today from the Gambia team, the harms are indeed all-encompassing, taking the form of physical and bodily harm to forced expulsion. As we heard from the councils today, supported by arguments made by some intervening states, of whose representatives I understand are in this room, these harms also include sexual violence, contributing to the destruction of the Rohingya as an ethnic and religious group in whole or in part. Which brings me to Ashita from GJC, who will speak on the organization's upcoming publication on the Burmese military's use of sexual violence in targeting Rohingya women and girls of reproductive age, and that connection to genocidal intent. We also actually heard arguments on the special intent requirement under the Genocide Convention today. So, Ashita, in the context of the Burmese military's clearance operations, could you walk us through how sexual and reproductive violence can serve as evidence of genocidal intent under international law?
Thanks so much, Hannah. And before I begin, I want to say thank you and how grateful I am to be here in community with all of you. And so thank you for having me. To begin, I think, with the hearings having started today, this question is very important in the way that we're seeing genocidal violence unfold in multiple contexts around the world today. For us at GJC, it's this case of the Rohingya before the ICJ that prompted us to look into the question of genocidal intent in more detail. And I want to acknowledge the work by Akhila Radhakrishnan and Grant Shubin in helping develop this analysis that I'm going to be talking about today. And I'm going to focus on what a gender-competent interpretation of the genocidal intent requirement under the Genocide Convention might look like in the context of the military and the manner in which sexual and gender-based violence, including reproductive violence, has been used to target the reproductive capacity of Rohingya women. And I do want to say that while my argument focuses on the reproductive capacity of Rohingya women, reproductive violence, which is essentially violence directed at a person's reproductive capacity, can be used against the whole population, against men, intersex people, trans folks. But what's important to remember is that violence during mass atrocities is not neutral. It doesn't happen in silos. It adopts a certain social and political character, as it has in this case, an intersectional character in relation to the targeted community. And a gendered analysis allows us to fully understand that violence, which essentializes a population to its reproductive characteristics. Reproductive capacity, more specifically, adopts certain significance in genocide because it is that capacity that perpetrators see as a threat, and then it is that capacity that becomes the object of the violence. And so recognizing what reproduction and reproductive capacity of the Rohingya community symbolize during the commission of these atrocities against them helps us fully understand the military's intentions and uncover what's really happening mentally over there. Now, just a bit of background. Since the 1990s, feminists, whether as activists, lawyers, or as judges before both the tribunals, the Yugoslavia and Rwanda tribunals, have worked hard to bring attention to sexual violence and rape and how they can be constitutive acts of genocide. And we've continued to fight hard since then, since the decision in Akayesu. And increasingly now there's work being done on reproductive violence as a category of violence that we often see in conflict, but that's either not documented accurately sometimes or doesn't get adequate attention of courts. And as we at GJC started thinking about some of these questions, we thought that there's a case to be made that genocidal intent can be concluded by looking at the type of violence, including reproductive violence, being perpetrated, and by looking at who it is targeted at. Now, this focus on reproductive capacity can validly invite some critiques of essentializing violence faced by women to their reproductive capacity. But at the same time, the reproductive lens can be an efficient way of showing genocidal intent and highlight the perpetrator's view of themselves, their violence, and their victims. So essentially, looking at the way in which the military's use of sexual and gender-based violence to target the reproductive capacity of Rohingya women and girls can tell us something about their genocidal intent. And to expand on this argument, I want to go into the doctrine really quickly. And this is the doctrine that the court will look at in the coming weeks. So a central question that the court will have to answer to reach a genocide determination, as we also heard in the submissions today, is whether the military intended to destroy the Rohingya. Now, genocide, as most of you will know, under Article 2 of the Convention, refers to situations when certain acts are committed with an intent to destroy a group in whole or in part. And I'm going to stick with those two words, destroy and in part. So now what do we mean by destroy? What is destruction? How do you destroy a group? The ICJ in Croatia said, destroy or destruction can be both physical destruction, so physical extermination or killing, or biological destruction. Now, lots of jurisprudence and literature exists on physical destruction of groups, but I want you to remember that destruction can also mean biological destruction. And that destruction can be of the group in whole or in part. In part has been held to mean substantial part. And through jurisprudence, we have three indicative factors for how do we decide if a part is a substantial part of the group. And we heard some arguments to this effect today as well. So we can look at numbers, we can look at prominence, and we can look at geography. Here too, the numerical aspect has gotten the most attention by courts and scholarship. And one can ask why. Maybe that's how violence against men shows up most often in conflict. But I want to invite you to think that geography and prominence can be equally illustrative in telling us what forms a substantial part of a group. Prominence, through jurisprudence, we've understood can be sort of found out if a part is significant enough to have an impact on the whole group, or we can look at the impact that this part's disappearance will have on the group. So the tribunal in Yugoslavia, for instance, in Karadzic and other cases, noted that eliminating the procreative capacities of a group bears directly on the whole group's ability to physically and biologically maintain its existence. And the tribunal, for example, in that case held that perpetrators would have known that killing of able-bodied Muslim men and separating the rest of the population would have severe procreative implications for that group. Now, a gender-competent analysis in this case then would highlight the important social function that Rohingya women and girls of reproductive age, the part of the group that I'm concerned with here, performs in sustaining the group's regenerative capacity. So while physical extermination and killing in large numbers may show the intent to commit genocide, but so can attacks intended to biologically destroy, such as attacks aimed at the regenerative capacity rather than the physical existence of even a part of a group, if that part plays a prominent role in ensuring the group's survival. And this is what we're seeing in Myanmar. This is what we saw in Myanmar. The fact-finding mission noted that there was systemic selection of women and girls of reproductive age for rape. There were attacks on pregnant women, mutilation and other injuries to reproductive organs. There was physical branding of bodies, bite marks left on bodies. There was also rape and gang rape of women of reproductive age, often done in public so as to almost create a spectacle out of it. And these attacks and this violence then has had implications for the reproductive capacity of the community. So in some cases, the injuries to genital organs, reproductive organs because of rape and sexual violence has meant that survivors are just unable to conceive anymore, thereby destroying their physical capacity to reproduce. But even in cases where that physical biological capacity remains, sexual violence or torture aimed at causing genital injuries has led to sexual intercourse becoming painful for men and women, having the indirect impact of reducing the reproductive capacity of these survivors. And then, like I said in the beginning, we have to grapple with the social realities in which this violence is taking place. So where the idea of honor is imposed on women and their bodies, rape and sexual assault is often seen as a devaluation or a loss of honor. And this is exactly how this violence is being used, because there's branding on bodies or bite marks left on bodies so that these women are seen as tainted. And so married women, for instance, have reported that their husbands don't want to have sexual relations with them anymore after finding out that they were victims of rape by the military. Or single women have reported that the stigma attached to being survivors has prevented them from establishing partnerships allowing for procreation. Therefore, this violence targeted at their reproductive capacity has eradicated the possibility of these victims continuing old or forming new intimate relationships that are essential for the existence and continuity of the Rohingya community. And so to conclude, the overwhelming evidence of the security forces' brutal and public perpetration of sexual and gender-based violence against Rohingya women and girls of reproductive age, coupled with the scale of this violence, leaves no doubt that these attacks were specifically aimed at impacting the reproductive capacity of the Rohingya as a group. The violence impacts the Rohingya community's ability to regenerate itself, therefore shows the perpetrator's intent to biologically destroy the group. And so I just want to end by saying that this argument, calling for understanding the significance that reproductive capacity of a community adopts during mass atrocities, is not an expansion of the intent requirement under the convention, but rather only a gendered understanding of what genocide is, the different ways in which the intention to destroy a people can manifest itself, especially when it doesn't look like mass killing.
Thank you so much, Ashita. Indeed, the harms caused are extremely horrific and so targeted, with sexual and reproductive violence being used as a systematic tool against Rohingya as a group. And, as we realize, the challenge of adjudicating on this matter under international law remains as well, especially in our rapidly evolving world today. With that in mind, strategic litigation becomes of the utmost importance. While the ICJ case is indeed central and so important, we must keep hope and remind ourselves that it is not the only pathway to achieving justice for the Rohingya. On that note, I am extremely honored to introduce Tengken. As we all may know, Tengken's leadership has been central to pursuing this matter of holistic justice. For example, Brooke, one of his organizations that he's leading, is currently spearheading a universal jurisdiction case in Argentina on the Rohingya genocide. So, Tengken, on Myanmar, and in reflection of today's hearing, how can international efforts be coherent and complementary so that speedy justice to victims and survivors can be ensured?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for organizing this event, and thank you, my friend from Human Rights Watch and Global Justice Center, and thanks to my friends joining. This is a very historic day as a Rohingya. I want to express thanks to my brothers who are coming all the way from Europe to show solidarity, to stand. This is the first time in the history for the Rohingya people standing at a courtroom, hearing, because many decades we're talking about genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes we are facing, but we have never been at the courtroom sitting down and listening and what the consequence, what kind of justice where we heading to, and we want this justice for a long time, many years, and many people are aware about after 2017, when this genocide happened because of international media and advocacy, created the world's largest refugee camp in Cox's Bazar. But we need to look beyond. As myself, I'm a genocide survivor. And why? Today, as we looking at the points, what our friend Arsalan Sulaiman have mentioned, and also Philip San have shown, and they all have mentioned all other from the Follyhook intent, the point. As a Rohingya, I will talk more about practically what we face and what I face. For example, they mentioned about history. One history mentioning about, we have seen my grandfather and also Pune Sanwin's grandfather, they were parliamentary secretary. We were not allowed to go to university. I was not allowed to go to university because I was not to move from one village to another. For example, the Hague to Amsterdam, if we need to go, we need to get a pass. And I have seen that time I was young, like 10, 12 years. I left when I was 17 from Arkansas State. And we have seen our eldest brothers, friends, they were not allowed to get married, even though they got married. They can get only limitation of the 2 childs. They need to get a pass. It takes 2 to 3 years. Many Rohingya were sentenced to jail. So this is the thing, the intention. When I was young in Arkansas State, I have passed through this. So what we do not know how this genocide is, because we realizing that there is very intention to destroy a community. And in Arkansas State, we cannot say the word Rohingya as a whole Burma anyway, because Rohingya is a word like they do not want to hear. If you say the Rohingya, you will be arrested, and denial of our existence, denial of our identity. So they say we are illegal immigrant. So that's how hate speech we have seen, whenever we try to go from one tone to another tone, they say this class and, degrading word. Those all are the things while how we pass through in our kind of state. We have seen all the things here. So I feel that very positive, very strong. And Gambia team destroyed the other Myanmar team because they do not allow even to the investigators, and then they are saying this is bias, and they did not even say anything. So I mean, this is very systematic, very intentional. And once the brother, our friend Aslan mentioned about Facebook thing, how systematically the Facebook messages, Facebook pages were spread up to kill all class, and those we suffered for a long time. But after 2017 was, the worst time we have faced. And in my understanding, the intent is very clear. I'm not a lawyer, but as a Rohingya, what I have faced in the practical ground until my age was 17 in Arkansas State, as I have now, I visited to the camps in 2017 in first week of September. According to all these things, these are very clear. And UN Fact-Finding Mission, they have done fantastic report. And that report helped everyone, particularly Gambia, to file here, and our case in Argentina, universal justice. based on that, we were able to file. And the intent, according to the fact-finding missions, it was clear. So what we have seen, I don't see that Myanmar side can argue this all, a strong evidence which were provided today from the Gambia team. So that is the reflection. Let me come to Argentina side. Argentina, we filed also November 13, November 11th of November, Gambia filed here, 2019, November 11th. Gambia filed here at ICJ, 2019, November 13 of November, we filed in Argentina. 2019, November 14, ICC open investigation. So we're proud to be Rohingya, that Rohingyas are leading for the justice for the Rohingya, justice for the Burma. I mean, not only for the Rohingya people, but we are proud that the Rohingyas cases are leading justice for all the people of Burma, because common enemy, this is military junta, systematically destroying our community and committing crimes and war crimes and crimes against humanity, other minorities. Until today, this is the same military online. So we call it that week, Justice Week. So that is a history we have to remember, 2019 November. So we filed it. As soon as we filed, we based on also this fact-finding missions report. But Argentina was a bit reluctant because of natural, like how the same formula during Aung San Suu Kyi's time, when she was agent, she said Gambia have nothing to do with Burma, and same thing Argentina said. Naturally, Argentina have nothing. There is no refugees in Argentina. There is no extradition policy, or a lot of things. It's so far away from one country to another. We are not related, any arguments or any fights between the countries, and they rejected. And then we straight away submitted to the Supreme Court, and it took 2 years, and we got the case allowed to open investigation, and then I did a testimony. So the testimony which we put, because the case is different, because this is a state-to-state versus case. Ours one is to bring those responsible, the most horrific crimes committed by the military, anywhere in the world we can pursue for justice. So we found Argentina, and then many media are asking, why Argentina? So my question is, why not? We want justice. And many countries like Europe and others, they never have supported to do that, to be honest. So we look for another at that place, that Argentina, we feel that we could do a case. And we were able, I was able to testify, and we narrow down and we go the same way to dimension, like top 4 villages, Tulatuli, Tulatuli, Mongnu, and Gudapi, and Chukpi. Those are the most horrific crimes Burmese military committed, like Light Infantry Division 11 and 33 and 77. Those are the most notorious Light Infantry Division and military commanders, and those top orders come from me online, like how we have witnessed today, how they order and how they kill it. And so we narrow down only particular one village, which is Chukping, and that Chukping, who are in charge, who is the commander there. And we were able to bring the survivors with the support of Legal Action Worldwide to Buenos Aires. And there is 6 women and 1 man. And their testimonies are very strong, very emotional, and men have to leave from the room. Today I remember the same way, when I listen in those, horrific crimes like committed, it's reminding me like 2017 when I visited to the camps, because they told me unitedly, we want justice, brother. The military is brutal. It's the very horrific crime. So now, and then what we did is, we focus, we brought those survivors. The women are very strong. The women are very strong. They are courageous. And I could say sometimes in Rohingya community, they see that women are not taking part, but I could say there are some women, they are very strong. And I'm surprised the way how they give testimonies, except one woman, all are very, very strong. And IIM head was there. He was saying, he was judged for many years. He said he never seen that consistency of their testimony. There is very, very powerful. And with that, finally, what's happened is February last year, it's about 1 year now, arrest warrant was released. So what could be in this case is, I think this merit hearing, this will be supportive because Facebook involvement, all evidence from Facebook, and IIM from evidence all there, and how the testimonies of these women and how the Argentinian judiciary, with thanks to them, they decided, top generals and commanders from Light Infantry Division 33, 77, and today they mentioned Bajo. I hope you all remember that guy in Monu village slaughtered one after another, 200 people within a few hours. They slaughtered one after another, which is Monu village. That person was also in our arrest warrant list. So we have 22 military top generals and 3 civilians, which is one Rakhine village leader and another 2, Daw San Suu Kyi and President Win Myint. So what we can see here is the merit hearing, this can be brought from Argentina court. Decision will be very, when they analyze, that could be a powerful part because there are so many corroboration of testimonies and many evidence. Beside that, there are many evidence how the judges are decided in Argentina. Those will be very effectively useful. And I believe that today's reflection and conjunction to Argentina and International Court of Justice, this will be very helpful both for the justice to get to success, which is a technicality of that. No matter that case is about arrest warrant, particularly for the Myanmar Online and top generals, but this case is a state bus. On our case, included also intention there, not only military generals to bring justice. Intention already they found genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. All are found out in Argentina case. So I believe definitely this will be helpful in a few months' time when after this merit hearing, when they analyze for the decision, it will be very helpful. And I believe that the Rohingya, these cases will be helpful not only for the Rohingya, all the people of Burma. We also can see internationally that even ICJ after Rohingya Gambia case, South Africa filed against Israel, and also in Argentina, we have seen different cases also filing. So these are very good things we are heading, no matter how governments like it or not, but these are very instrumental. These are very good way for the justice we are heading to. And I'm speaking here, I think it's all 5 women and 1 man, right? So, so it is important that Rohingya women dignity, just when we talk justice, there is a very serious sexual violence, you also mentioned, and that is very important when we focus for their rehabilitation and also after when the decision comes, rebuilding, empowering Rohingya community, because Burmese military is military and the government intentionally destroying our community. But practically, the survivors, what they want is, okay, decision will be made, the genocide decision. What will be survivors' hope? That's very important. Many people are watching from the camp today, as far as we know, and they all are asking, messaging us, what will happen after this? Let's say decision. It's very important when the decision comes, we need to push and pressure, and we need to do a lot of advocacy, government, to implement. So when justice made, we're talking about returning to our homeland, restoring our rights and reparation, compensation. And as we heard today, like 200 villages over burned down, where they will return. This all need to be done. So that could be a realistic of outcome after the verdict. We need to get implementing the decision of International Court of Justice. I believe that very positive. I believe we can move forward. We all can work together, hopefully, to implement the decision when it comes. Because 9 years on, these Rohingya survivors in a squalid camp, and 50% are children there. What will be their future? So we cannot support Burmese military and government. They are destroying our community intentionally with genocide. But we have to do opposite side, rebuilding this community, empowering this community. That is one of the very top line we need to focus on. I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Utukan, for your powerful remarks. Indeed, the road to, as Utukan said, the road to comprehensive justice, not only in Myanmar, but all across the world, is very long, but achievable, I believe, by the resilience, persistence, and creativity of leaders like yourself. So thank you very much for all that you do. I and many believe that actually is what led to this case's merit hearings today. As we all may recall today in their oral arguments, the Gambia's councils actually referred to the fact-finding mission reports and OHCHR reports, all of which involve the contribution of extensive and thorough civil society documentation and engagement. So on that note, Shayna, looking forward from Human Rights Watch's perspective, can you reflect on the situation on the ground, especially in light of the January 2020 provisional measures that were issued by the ICJ on this case, and tell us what the international community can do more to support these efforts?
Sure. Thank you, Hannah and Tunkin and Ishida. It's always, great to hear your thoughts and contributions. In terms of the situation on the ground today, you obviously have distinct populations. There are hundreds of thousands of Rohingya remaining in Rakhine State in Myanmar. There are about 1 million Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. There are thousands of Rohingya refugees every year who are undertaking dangerous journeys by boat and overland, looking for refuge, primarily to reach Malaysia. Each face different specific threats and abuses, but all are, for the most part, denied dignity and safety and trapped in cycles of abuse and repression, cycles that justice efforts like these are aiming to bring to an end. In Myanmar, the situation for Rohingya in Rakhine is as dire as it's been since the military's genocidal acts in 2017. The military's ongoing abuses, persecution, severe movement and aid restrictions, land confiscation, destruction of property, these violate the provisional measures that were ordered by the ICJ, and they have created an enabling environment for further grave atrocities. The horrific abuses that we heard about in court today are not a thing of the past. They are ongoing and fueled by pervasive impunity that the Myanmar military has always enjoyed. Since late 2023, Rohingya have been caught in the fighting between the Myanmar military and the Arakan army. This fighting has pushed over 150,000 Rohingya across the border into Bangladesh. We have interviewed hundreds of Rohingya who have arrived in Bangladesh over the past year or two, who describe the grave abuses that are being carried out by both parties, by both the Myanmar military and the Arakan army. Extrajudicial killings, widespread arson, unlawful recruitment, sexual violence. The Arakan army, which now controls the majority of Rakhine state, has ramped up oppressive measures against Rohingya in northern Rakhine, including forced labor and arbitrary detention. Restrictions on aid, on livelihoods, on agriculture are exacerbating the already dire food shortages in the state, which the UN has called a famine in the making. In the Cox's Bazar camps in Bangladesh, there are now over 1 million Rohingya refugees. This influx of new arrivals over the past few years, as well as cuts to foreign aid, are putting a huge strain on the already overstretched resources there. There is a dire lack of critical supplies, food, water, cooking gas, medical assistance. Funding cuts have led to the closure of healthcare centers and education programs. There's also a serious lack of protection, particularly for women and children. We regularly document horrifying accounts of sexual violence and abductions, both of which are on the rise. When I've spent time in the camps recently, it is palpable how much the feelings of desperation and hopelessness have grown over the past 8.5 years. Refugees there are stuck in limbo, waiting for justice, waiting for freedom, waiting for the chance to return home. Bangladesh authorities restrict Rohingyas' access to work and to study, their access to the very tools that would allow them to live with dignity and independence and build skills for when the day comes that they're able to return. Most Rohingya refugees we speak to want to go back to their homes and land in Rakhine one day, but only when they can be safe and free, when they will have equality and rights, and those conditions do not exist today. Bangladesh has made clear it wants to move forward with repatriation, but returning Rohingya to Myanmar under today's conditions would seriously threaten their lives and their freedoms. Last year, over 6,000 Rohingya attempted dangerous boat journeys from Myanmar and Bangladesh seeking refuge in third countries. Almost 900 of them died or went missing, making the Andaman Sea and the Bay of Bengal among the deadliest waters in the world. In November, junta authorities detained over 500 Rohingya after intercepting their boat off the coast of Rakhine State, charging them with irregular movement for traveling without permission or documentation. While the Arakan army has gained significant territorial control of Rakhine, the Myanmar military system of apartheid and persecution remains firmly in place. Responsibility for the security of the Rohingya does rest primarily with Myanmar, but it extends to countries where they seek refuge and to the broader international community, particularly while conditions in Rakhine make safe return impossible. The 2017 atrocities did not happen in a vacuum. They were the result of years of increasing restrictions, segregation, campaigns of hate speech designed to dehumanize and isolate the Rohingya while depriving them of citizenship and freedoms. The crimes that this case centers on have their roots both in the system of violence and persecution that Myanmar authorities constructed over decades, as well as in the lack of an adequate international response. The struggles of the Rohingya are ultimately a reflection of the Myanmar military's impunity, that these generals carried out ethnic cleansing, crimes against humanity, genocidal acts in plain view without real consequences, at least so far, which is obviously what these justice efforts are attempting to counteract. As we heard today, that lack of accountability, particularly for the 2017 atrocities, but also for the decades of military crimes in ethnic regions, emboldened the military to carry out the coup in February 2021, which was orchestrated by the very same generals. A holistic international response would be one that addresses the Rohingyas' humanitarian needs as inherently bound up in their rights and freedoms. It entails building stronger connections, centering Rohingyas' voices, working more in concert across borders, between headquarters or capitals and in-country teams, between international humanitarian actors and local groups. It entails making sure that justice and accountability aren't seen as secondary aims. And it requires better integrating the international approach to the atrocities against the Rohingya and the atrocities carried out since the coup. These are intersecting crises with shared perpetrators. The freedom of the Rohingya is very much bound up in the freedom of Myanmar, and both depend on the impunity of the military being dismantled, the junta's access to foreign revenue and arms being cut off, and the generals being held to account. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shana, for your very extensive but also very harrowing account of the current situation in Rakhine State or Arakan. As Shana said, the situation is extremely dire and the suffering of the Rohingya is ongoing. This also echoes what Lucky shared with us in her statement at the beginning of how the genocide is an ongoing process. And the suffering, is not only ongoing in Myanmar and Burma, but also in Bangladesh and across the neighboring region, including by the over 1 million refugees in Bangladesh. And also, it's greatly appreciated that practical recommendations were shared, Shana, and maybe they could be considered by some of the state representatives joining us today and possibly relate to their capitals. And on that note, it's very, very important. Many of us civil society have been saying this for decades, but addressing the root causes of the ongoing crisis in Burma and Myanmar is extremely important. Not only to address the crisis at hand, but also to prevent future atrocities. And that is where the ICJ case comes into play. So we will now conclude the first part of the panel discussion.
Thank you, Hannah, and everyone. Good evening. For decades, our suffering as Rohingya was unheard, unseen, and denied in Myanmar and across the world. So in a world of darkness, this merit hearings brings hope and light. As we all know, the hearing is going to argue whether or not Myanmar committed genocide against the Rohingya group. It is also going to argue whether genocidal intent existed in committing such heinous atrocity crimes against us. Hopefully, the hearing will lead to a verdict on the questions of genocide that is on our side, that recognize our collective pain and suffering as protected group under the Genocide Convention. An acknowledgement of our suffering from the world's highest court will bring change. Indeed, the ICJ's decisions in this case is expected to shape how other courts, including the International Criminal Court and national courts, such as in Argentina, approach legal accountability for Myanmar. We are all watching and counting on the ICJ to set a precedent grounded in the international law for this unprecedented case. Although it will take some time, A judgment from the ICJ will send a clear signal that state cannot persecute communities with impunity. It will serve as a powerful tool of deterrence, influencing not only trajectory of justice in Rakhine State, but also how justice is conceived across the country, Myanmar. To rebuild a nation fractured by decades of ethnic persecution, comprehensive justice is essential. Justice that includes accountability, recognitions, and the guarantee of non-recurrence. We, the Rohingya, do not take this case lightly, and we hope the international community treat it with the same gravity. As justice is pursued, it is essential that the ICJ and other international mechanisms fully recognize the harms inflicted on our people, especially the targeted violence against women and gender minorities. I thank intervening states for recognizing and emphasizing these harms in standing with us against genocide. Forced expulsion, family separations, birth restrictions, and other forms of systematic destructions of our people, our culture, and tradition in our villages, in our homeland are integral part of the genocidal process, in addition to mass killing, sexual violence, mass detention, torture, and the unending list of crimes. The fact that we are no longer in our homeland, separated from our families and loved ones, is itself a consequence of genocide. We carry the weight of genocide wherever we go, across Bangladesh and through South and Southeast Asia. Over 1 million Rohingya are confined to overcrowded, squalid camps, cut off from education, employment, and a future. Many, driven by desperation, risk their lives at sea, only to perish in the water. And for those who attempted to return home, they're not met with safety, but with arbitrary arrest, detention, torture, and renewed atrocities. Our suffering is not in the past. It continues today. While the path to justice may be long, we call on the international community to stand with us until justice is truly achieved, not with words, but with the meaningful actions. Your active solidarity and supports are essential to our survival. In Rakhine State, the Rohingya are now once again facing atrocities, killing, mass arson, torture, forced recruitment, sexual violence. Echoes of the horrors of 2016 and 2017 are unfolding again before our eyes. The international community must do more to stop genocide. These include enforcing the ICJ's provisional measures and taking decisive steps to hold all perpetrators accountable, not only the military junta, but also armed actors like the Arkan Army. Thank you.